Welcome back to the Hive Doctor, your beekeeping mentor. Today I'm going through my colonies, and I thought the strategy that I'm going to be using today for getting ready for my harvest and setting up for the next nectar flow is something that you may face one day and you might appreciate knowing and adding to your beekeeping tool belt. So I want to show you that. Stick around. So if you've been following me for some time, you know that I love to keep my colonies in 1.5s. That is, one deep hive body and one medium honey super as the brood chamber. But now that this is my first year having really put that to practice, I have seen a difference in my bees that is not necessarily as productive as I was hoping. So I'm going to go back to previous year's experiences, and I'm going through this yard and I'm taking my queen excluders that are above the 1.5, and I'm going to move them down 1 and put them right above the brood chamber. Now, in conjunction with doing this, and I'm going to explain why in just a second, I'm also seeing what I've got to harvest for wildflower, my first harvest of the year, and I'm going to be setting up for the next nectar flow, which is sourwood, my summer crop. So the reason I'm going to be moving this excluder down is because I already know, based on some math that I saw from a Canadian beekeeper's blog, it's a YouTube channel, totally check that out. He's chock full of awesome strategies for beekeeping, especially on large scales. The bees, the queen, has plenty of room to lay in a single deep hive body. I have no doubt about that. But I still want my colonies to have that 1.5. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be managing my colonies throughout the year with that single deep hive body as the brood chamber. And once my 2 harvests are finished for the year, I'm going to, of course, remove the excluder. It's no longer needed because I'm not making any more honey, and then allow my bees to grow into that 1.5. And with that, I'm going to be moving through fall and into winter, and that's how I'm going to winter my bees. And that was my original goal and purpose. I just kept them that way throughout the year because I thought higher populations, apparently for my area, and perhaps yours as well, that 1.5 is only necessary later on. That single deep brood chamber is going to be great for spring, summer, afterwards going into the fall, switch it up and move them into that 1.5 for brood and food going into the winter time. So I'm going to be starting with this colony right here. I've got screen bottom board so I can just smoke right up underneath them there. The entrance is a little bit. Now the first thing I'm going to do is remove my quilting box. These are something I keep on year round. It just helps me manage my colonies a little bit easier, creates a buffer from that intense sunlight when the sun's beating down on them. As you can tell, we're in the shade by now. Now if you saw my video on a supering strategy for when you run out of medium honey supers and all you got is drawn out comb, even if it's in deeps, that's what I've got going on with my setup here. You can check out that video right up here in the corner of the screen after this one. Right now, this I'm going to take off so I can work lower. Because I'm taking my queen excluder and moving it down 1, it means I've got to locate the queen to make sure that she is indeed down here. But before we get to that, just taking this box off, I can feel the weight. What that's going to do is give me an idea of what I have as far as honey to harvest for my spring wildflower. And this isn't bad. There will be a little bit out of this to spin out. Now we're down to the excluder and medium honey super that I was trying to get my bees worked up into earlier in the year, and they just didn't do it as fast as I was hoping. They did do a good job. As I peel this plastic excluder off, I see that they're on 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly 5 to 6 frames. One thing to always keep in mind is before you put your excluder down, look on the bottom side. You could have a queen hanging onto that. One of my practices I like to do is just bump, bump, bump. Now I can put this out of my way, give them a little bit of smoke. Now my queen could be up here. The best way to find your queen is not to start looking in this box. If I take this frame out and don't see her, and then this frame out and don't see her, she may have been down below and just worked her way up to the frame I just checked. So the best way to go about this is to remove the box completely, give them a little bit of smoke in between, and put this on a surface nearby where I can work it and I can work this deep. And now I have a choice of which one I want to work through first in order to find the queen. Now I've got my honey super over here. Could be brood in there, could be a queen, I don't know, haven't looked. But I've also got access to my deep. My quilting box is right here, kind of in the way a little bit. Let's move that there. And I will probably be going through the deep first. I have a feeling the queen's going to be in there. That's just from experience. I could be completely wrong. But one of the things to help you find out which box the queen could be in is after you've had them open for a little while, the box that is queenless will start to have this nervous buzz, which means she's going to be in the other box. Because the one where they're starting to do that nervous buzz, they don't detect the queen's pheromone quite as strongly as they did. And as I always do most of the time, always mostly, is remove the outer frame first and work my way in towards where the brood is most likely to be, which is where the queen is most likely to be. However, I've already got brood on the outside frame. I've got capped brood, larvae, and eggs. And the frame that you're most likely to find a queen on is one with open brood, larvae, and eggs, because that's where the action's happening. She can be anywhere, but she's most likely to be on a frame of open brood, because capped brood is old news. She's already been there, done that. I don't see her on that one, so we're going to move in, occasionally smoking them, moving slowly. This is one of my Varroa control frames with mostly capped brood. This is the time to utilize my method for controlling the Varroa. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to give them a little smoke because I'm about to shake them. Sometimes it bothers the bees, most of the time it doesn't. But I've been stung a little bit more than usual lately and I don't feel like getting any more stung. So I'm going to do another once over for that queen. I don't see her, so shake, 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 shake. And the bees will fly around. They're disoriented. They're like, what the heck is this guy doing? And I didn't get all the bees off. Right now would be an ideal time to go get my bee brush and brush them off. But I'm very careful in my work, so I'm just going to slowly scrape along the bottom bar. And if you're not familiar with my Varroa control frames, please check out my video on that. It's just one of the more natural methods of Varroa control that there are. This is very similar to using those green drone frames that you place in the freezer once they're full of drone brood. There is an ethical potential issue about this because I'm killing all this drone brood. When it comes to either doing an alcohol wash or scraping off drone brood, I will scrape off drone brood. What's left on this frame is just a little bit of capped honey and incoming nectar. So I'm going to set that to the side so I can continue my search. On this one, I've just literally removed probably quite a bit of Varroa, though I have treated in this yard with my oxalic acid. What I'm going to do is set this probably at the end of my yard here where there's more room and less colonies. And ants will come along, they'll eat this stuff up, remove the developing larvae. So it's really not a waste because it'll feed the critters of the woods. But then later when all this is empty, I can come through, collect the wax, and go process it back at my place. Okay, now it's time to smoke them down a little bit more again and continue the search. And it's nice to use a smoker just so you can remind them, hey, I'm here and I don't mean any harm, but I need you to not sting me. Because sometimes the longer you keep a colony open, they'll start to get a little agitated at you. All right, I've got my frame loose, lifting it up nice and easy. Primarily capped brood open. So far the brood is looking great, but no queen yet. I know I've got a queen because I see signs of her. There's eggs in these frames. This is a frame primarily of capped brood. That's probably about 3,000 bees on one side. Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta show you this one. This is what makes a beekeeper feel good. I mean, there's quite a few holes, but overall, that's a pretty solid pattern. Oh yeah, that's a lot of bees. And with this many bees coming on that are gonna be emerging from this frame and the others. I'm going to have a lot of foragers for my summer sourwood nectar flow. Beautiful. All right, next frame, capped brood, pollen, bunch of drones, workers, more capped brood, a lot of empty cells from newly emerged bees. Still no queen. That's okay because there's still a few brood frames that she could be on, and she could even be in that honey super over there. So this one's an actively laid frame, eggs and larvae, so she could very well be on this one. Oh my goodness, that looks really good. I love a good looking frame of brood. It's probably more exciting to see that than frames of honey, to be honest, because it's the core of your hive surviving, you know, and thriving. And you notice the longer I'm in this and the more time that goes by, the more likely one of these boxes is going to start buzzing. That might make it a little bit easier on me to find the queen. I've got a few girls in my face, so I'm going to just do this a little bit, do this. And don't smoke too much because you don't want to put that queen on the run. I like to keep my frames that I've already looked at with a gap between those and the frames I haven't looked at so the queen can't cross over. And here's another frame just like the one I showed you a minute ago, just full of capped brood. Oh my gosh, this is a nice hive. Not only are they going to be able to make me a honey crop, I'm going to be able to split from them really well as well. Less likely the queen's on this frame. There's a lot of bees to look through though. This would be an excellent one that I would consider raising more queens from, which I'm going to start here in a couple of weeks. Now once I've gotten this far into a box without having seen the queen, I just want to point out it may have been easier to go through the medium honey super and look for her because there's less frames in there and there's less space to look for her. Here's another one of my Varroa control frames. It's not quite at the stage as the other one is, but it does have quite a few drone. It looks like there's eggs on this one, so the queen could be on this frame laying drone. Who knows? Oh man, this is the kind of hive that makes a beekeeper proud to look at. Last frame. Usually I see the queen by now. This one's brood as well. No eggs in this one, so she's not necessarily actively laying on this frame. Doesn't mean that she couldn't be on it. So what I'm going to do is just put this one back, let them sit as they are, and I'm going to just real quickly but easily, but carefully, go through this honey super and look for our queen. I really need her down below. They've started drawing comb on this frame. The sun's pretty much washing that out, but it looks really good. And on this side, they've of course done a lot more work. Set that over, give myself some space to work. Next frame, a little heavier. Capped honey, no queen, no brood. Next frame I anticipate will probably have brood on it. It does. So we've got some capped brood, some open larvae, I'm looking for the queen. And if you haven't seen my queen spotting video, I'll link it as well so that you can check that out. That was a popular one. Helped out a lot of people. I got a lot of good feedback for the tips and tricks about how to find your queen a little bit easier. And when to look for her. You don't always need to find her. But this is definitely one of those circumstances where I need to find her because I need to make sure she's below that excluder. Next frame, a bunch of eggs. So this is an actively laid frame, and you know what? Here she is, crawling along my top bar. Right there, right in the center. Just moving along. I already lost her. Boy, she's quick. There she is. And then I place her right there. And I keep my eye on her until I see her crawl down between a couple of frames, which right there she goes. So now I know that she is securely in that deep hive body. I can put this super back together. And at this point I could manipulate my frames like I've shown in my video how to do during a nectar flow, but I don't care to do that right now. It's not important. I've got a lot of hives to go through and do what you see here today. So what I'm going to do is put everything back in this deep, space it back the way it was, fill it back with frames, and get my excluder on top. Sometimes it's easier to just use your hands to space these frames. Other times it's easier to use a hive tool as leverage because they can really get stuck. Or if you got any homemade frames like I do still in your operation, they can be a little bit tight and difficult to move. Just be careful when you're leveraging your hive tool that you're not leveraging it on squishing a bee, and that you don't move it too quickly. The bees will fall off down inside and they may not be too happy about that. And that last frame, if it's got a bunch of bees on it and it's tight to put it down in there and you're afraid of rolling the bees, just do a good shake. Boom. Shake the bees off onto the primary top bars and then put your frame back down in and space it accordingly. All right, I'm going to smoke these down a little bit. And since I'm putting an excluder on, I want to make sure that this burr comb is all off of the top bars. I'm trying to get these bees out of it so I don't hurt anyone. Okay, and that could be collected, processed later. All right, there's my excluder. Now I know what I've got to work with as far as harvest. I know where the honey is, how much I've got in the colony, and when I come to harvest, I could go ahead and bring another extra box to put on them for sourwood for my summer honey crop. Now, if you recall, we found the queen in this medium honey super, so there's brood in there. And that brood, now that it's above the excluder, it'll simply just continue to develop. Eventually, every worker, every drone will emerge from its cell, fully developed, and then those empty cells that the queen can no longer lay in, the workers, the foragers, will backfill with honey, and it'll become a honey box. Now she's down there, she's gonna start laying in those areas of the deep where workers have recently emerged from and that bees have cleaned out and made ready for her to lay. If you have any questions about beekeeping strategies, whatever it's about, but especially, you know, during honey flow time, nectar flow, when you're hoping to make a crop, let me know in the comments below. Drop me one of these. Don't forget to tell your friends about the Hive Doctor, and I'll see you in the next video.